Welcome back to the Leashed Vine podcast. I'm your host, Mandy Boutelle. On today's episode, I have a conversation with Sarah Stremming, a dog behavior consultant and podcaster, who shares her insights on dog behavior, her holistic approach to training, and her personal journey, including her struggles and coping strategies during the pandemic. Sarah discusses the evolution of her business, emphasizing in virtual work's benefits and the importance of mental wellness and finding ways to prioritize her mental health within the emphasis of her work. She also delves into the challenges and strategies for managing social media, the significance of authenticity in her work, and the value of specializing in areas of personal interest within the dog training industry. Our episode highlights Sarah's philosophy of embracing one's true self in work and life, underscoring the importance of adapting and evolving professionally. So, with that brief summary of what we talk about, Sarah is someone who made me feel better about working when it comes to feeling anxious about work and feeling that pressure, and knowing for me that the only way to get rid of some of that anxiety is to do some of the work. And she made me feel okay about that, which I think is a little refreshing for those of us that we put our anxiety and stress of work into work to help kind of negate that anxiety that builds. So it was really refreshing to hear that spin of it's okay to work if it helps take the edge off of your anxiety. So that was really reassuring and something that really clearly stuck with me from this episode. But we also talk about her playing the long game with her podcast and how that's just grown and helped more people find her, but also talking about specializing. Because I think a lot of the times, a lot of us, especially when we first try to start out and get a feel for what we like to train and what we like to teach, is we kind of just do everything. And so Sarah and I, in this conversation, we talk more about niching down and really leaning into what you're best at and what you enjoy the most. Because if you are going to be doing this profession for however many years you may do it or intend to do it, you should be doing it with topics and subjects that you love and are passionate about and want to geek out and nerd more about. That is what we talk about in this episode. We talk a lot more about niching down and just finding the ways, like we do through most of these episodes, in how to prioritize ourselves within our business and setting our business up in such a way. So, it's Sarah Stremming. Come on, let's get into the episode because it's so good. Sarah Stremming. Oh my gosh. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. And I'm very honored to have you on and just that you're even open to having this conversation and adding to the conversation. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Mandy. I think it's going to be fun, good conversation, good topics. It's important, really. This podcast, I think, is important in doing an important thing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. A lot of people, if they don't know you, I think it's very rare at this point, but just to give a little intro of what you do and how you got to where you are now with your training business, with the podcast, can you just give us a little intro?
Little snapshot into the world of. So I'm Sarah. I have my own podcast called Cog Dog Radio, which is probably why folks have heard of me if they have. And I work privately with clients on behavior concerns. I really only have a tiny handful of behavior problems that I don't work with. So the niche is really more about kind of the type of client and the type of person that I want to work with. So
Ooh.
a lot of times that winds up being dog sport competitors because I've been in dog sports for 25 years, and those tend to be kind of my people, but a lot of times not. And I do get emails that are like, I don't do sports, but I think maybe you can help me.
You're like, please work
and
with me.
yes. And a lot of times I absolutely do and love it and really love those clients. So that it's really more about kind of an eye to wellness and a person who'd like to zero in on wellness and focus on that sort of holistic whole picture view of treating these behavior problems, rather than like let's just dive in with a hammer and a nail and get this fixed. That's not really how I work, although I pride myself on big outcomes for my clients. I really do want things to get better, and I want things to get better on like a big scale.
Like
If your dog
overall
is
quality of life.
Yes, like if your dog is barky lunging at other dogs on leash, the perfect client for somebody else might be a person who is totally cool with, for the rest of the dog's life, crossing the street and then giving a cookie after they pass that dog,
Just
right? That's
continuous
the
management. Yeah.
yes, that's an ideal client for a lot of folks because that's like, yeah, I can hit that out of the park every single time. This is great. But I often get people who are like, and I want this dog to be on the agility world team. So how is this going to get done? He needs to go on an airplane. He needs to be in. I've been to world championships to watch. It is the most insane, intense environment that I can imagine putting a dog in. And like, so those are the outcomes that a lot of times people are interested in. And so I do pride myself on getting there for people if they are willing to do that deep dive into who is this dog and how can we best support him, not just how can we fix his behavior to meet kind of my needs. So that's my primary work right now, is working with those clients privately. And then I also have a membership where people can come in and be a part of a community and have access to all of my material and kind of look at the material and talk in the community. And I'm really proud of where that's going right now. That's a new thing for me this year. And I love that people are in there supporting each other. I even have 2 members who like met up and took their young dogs to the sniff spot. Really, really excited about that. And then I'm getting back into, I don't know if we can say post-pandemic, but because I don't think that exists, but I'm getting back into a little bit of traveling and teaching, which I was doing a lot of kind of right up until March 2020. So
Right.
getting back into that a little bit too. So, and then with my personal dogs, I compete in obedience and agility and do a lot of wandering around, looking at mushrooms and stuff in the woods in the Pacific Northwest.
I love that. That was a very real intro. And I am curious, speaking of the pandemic, how was it, for a lot of us, we had just like, "Arr," and like, okay, what the heck are we going to do? A lot of people
Yeah.
started their businesses during the pandemic, like right before.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious how you navigated that. Because I think a lot of us haven't really talked about how we got through that with our businesses.
I'm extremely fortunate, Mandy, in that most of my business was virtual when that happened.
Right.
So I count that as something very fortunate that happened to me, is that I moved my business online in 2016. So it had
Oh,
already been pretty much virtual other than traveling to teach, which I was doing quite a bit of. I was traveling like 10 times a year
oh,
to
wow.
teach somewhere. And so that was a significant income loss, but it was not too hard to replace, especially when you factor in the cost of travel. So
Right.
taking away that cost of travel, I didn't actually have to replace everything, right? So I'm really lucky that I really was already virtual. And then what happened is everybody got more comfortable with virtual work. So it honestly only did great things for me in a work way. It only did great things for me in a
Right.
personal way. Other things may have really suffered, but in a work way, it really wasn't a bad thing for me, which I think I'm in a small number of people that can say that.
Oh, totally, and I appreciate that you acknowledge that too, because I felt the same way. It's like, "Oh, okay, I already had an online thing, I guess I'll lean more into it," and not a lot of people had that.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, like, same here, work went well. Mental health was, like, down here, like, I'm pouring my
Yeah,
cup and it is fully empty, cracked, and, like, leaking everywhere. So I'm really
yeah.
curious, just navigating the pandemic, navigating business in general, how has the mental health journey been in that? And I know that's a loaded question, and we'll pick through that a little bit more.
Well, I was never depressed or anything before the pandemic either. No, so that was sarcasm. Yeah, I maybe could count myself as fortunate again in the pandemic because I was already really familiar with being in the deep dark, as I call it. And so when it started to show up again, I was like, oh, okay, here's this thing. It's going to be here until it doesn't want to be here anymore. And I am going to deal with it the way that I have dealt with it before. So
Mm.
the depression was very real. Honestly, still is. Like I'm not. It's
Oh,
been a
yeah,
rough
same.
go, right? It's been a rough ride for a few years for me. And but the anxiety and the fear and the like not wanting to leave my house or go to the
Yep.
grocery store, like that
Mhm.
was pretty dangerous, kind of a dangerous place for me to be. So for me, it was leaning really hard into the things that I know can support my mental health. If folks have been following me for any length of time, they've heard of the 4 steps to behavioral wellness. It is basically that stuff. that is something that I teach about for dogs, but it is something that is really important to me as a human. So exercise being one, my preferred form of exercise is walking outside in nature. And there was a time there where they were like, hey, maybe don't. Like, hey, maybe if you have to get in your car,
Right.
don't do it. Right.
Right.
So and the places that I wanted to go. So in Washington State, they did close down a lot of trails.
They
They
did that
did
here in
basically say
Oregon
you
too.
can't, you can't
Yeah.
be outside. That was bad. That was bad for me
Yep.
when that happened. Kind of as soon as I could go back out and walk again, I did. Even, taking that as like a calculated risk, I went out, was doing it. I would love to say that I like replaced it with something great in my house, but I totally didn't. I just was sad that I couldn't be outside.
Yeah. When nature is your therapy, it's hard to find a replacement
It's kind
indoors.
of not. Yeah, kind of isn't an indoor replacement. Like
Right.
there isn't a YouTube video for that. Like
You
there,
put me on a
there's just
treadmill with YouTube, it's still not gonna happen. No.
yeah, it's not the same thing. One of the other steps is enrichment, which is essentially like, how do I do the things that I naturally want to be doing? Well, being outside in nature is kind of one of those things, but also dog training. So I really got into a routine of training my dogs every day, which was really healing and therapeutic for me to do. And I just taught them like stuff. We did like fitness behaviors and competitive obedience behaviors and things like that. We weren't going to dog shows, so there was no kind of competitive reason to be training. And but I was still leaning into like competition behaviors with the hopes that the shows would come back, which they did, of
Now you're
course.
ready.
And I'm so prepared. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, then I went right back in and everything was perfect. But I also really do, and I think that this is important for the dog trainers listening. Like I get a great amount of satisfaction from my work. And I have decided not to listen to the narrative that there's something wrong with that and that I need to be like quote unquote well balanced.
I love that so much. Oh my God.
I have decided that it is okay for me to fully immerse myself in work as a coping mechanism. I have decided if that is actually me coping, then what is actually wrong with it? Because a behavior is only a problem if it's a problem. This is something I talk about all the time, that people kind of think that there are dog behaviors that dogs shouldn't do, right? So like Rhea will get up on the kitchen table and look out the window at birds.
Oh,
And
Fern does that. She has her own designated
right.
chair. Yeah, I let her.
Sure. And I think people would be appalled that my dog is standing on the kitchen table, but I'm like, it isn't a problem for me or her. So I'm not really sure who it's a problem for, right? So
She's not doing it when you're eating. Like, maybe she
I
is.
mean,
I don't know.
usually, but come on, she's not standing on the plate. It's a big table. So it really is. If it's not a problem, it's not a problem.
Right.
So me fully immersing myself in my work, I've decided it's not a problem. So that's comes back to another thing that I say, which is that balance is a verb. So balance is just something you do every day. Maybe today I work a lot and then tomorrow I work less and tomorrow I go to the woods with the dogs. And like, it's okay that in the pandemic, I worked a lot and really put myself there because it's really satisfying to me. And I decided that there's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with having other things that satisfy you more than work and leaning into those things. Like power to you. I actually just had to Google what a hobby is, like what the definition is the other day. So I don't know. I hear people have those things.
Well, your
And then the other
hobbies
two-
just happen to like coincide with work too. That's like how mine are.
Dog training is, a hobby of mine and also is what is my work. And so fine. I've decided that that's okay. I've decided not to fight against it. People keep telling me that I should do things that are not dog related, but if I don't want to, then I'm not going to. The other two steps are nutrition and communication. Nutrition is a big, big deal. I think it's a huge deal for everyone. It's a huge deal
Every
for
being.
dogs.
Yeah.
Every being. For me personally, I am in eating disorder recovery. So like I have to actually think about eating a lot and more than I want to. And it's really easy for me to just like pretend that one doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah.
But it totally does. And it really makes a difference. It turns out nourishing your body with food is kind of a normal, natural thing we're supposed to do. So it's something that I now tried to lean on again in the pandemic. And when I was doing my best in the pandemic, I was actually cooking a lot because I enjoy it. But the grocery thing and the going out, I mean, there were
Yeah.
barriers to basically everything,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That last one being communication, that one's hard, but essentially it's just a reminder that I deserve to be heard, right? And so communication, I think we feel it is like this back and forth thing. It is. It's this two-way thing. It's not just a listening thing.
Yep.
It's also a being heard thing. So I'm still working on that one, Mandy, to be honest. But
I feel that. No, everything you've touched on, I'm like, yep. Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Check.
That's everything I experienced. You were checking all the boxes.
Mhm.
Communication, I think that can also be communication with self. Cause I think a lot of the times, like, especially with the pandemic, like for me, I feel like, and I've said this on so many episodes, but like my mental health was like right here and I couldn't look around it. Like I'm dodging my hand if you guys aren't watching on YouTube, but it's just, it was right in my face and I wasn't used to like actually paying attention to that. And I was like, oh, this is depression. Oh shit. Okay, this is like heavy. Cause like I always had anxiety. Turned
Yeah.
out got diagnosed early last year with ADHD and PMDD, which is another heavy
Mhm.
form of depression. Never knew. And so when the pandemic hit, everything was right there in front of me and I couldn't get away from it. And I was just like, what the hell do I do? And I think for a lot of us, that happened because we were subjected to staying in home with our pets, with our partners, and that was a
Mhm.
lot. For me, I uprooted my entire life in San Francisco, moved to Oregon, and stayed with family for 9 months. That was a huge, like,
Oh boy.
that was a lot for
Yeah.
me. um,
That's a lot. That's a
it's a
lot.
lot to process, and you know, a
Mhm.
lot of people say that the big life changes will really trigger depression, anxiety, and so I changed my career, changed my home state, and left family, and so all those big changes really piled on top of me. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my business. I came to the fork in the road of like, do I want to continue training and lean into the virtual training, or go off and do woof culture and see
Yeah.
if that works? I don't know.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, thankfully it worked out. But, you know, it's not everyone has had that luxury. And I do acknowledge that. I'm very privileged to be in that situation. But I think just having to really look at our mental health I've seen it with so many other trainers that a lot of the times we're just like, oh, okay, now we need to change how we approach our business because
Mhm.
they go hand in hand and we can't. I'm grateful for the pandemic in the sense that it really brought mental health to the forefront. And so a lot of us that were figuring out our businesses, we had to say, okay, how are we going to take care of ourselves when we're working from home all the time? Did that make sense?
It makes complete sense because we like to pretend, I think, as an industry. Not that other industries don't do this, but I'm not
We're
involved in
talking
them,
about
so I
ours.
can't speak
Yeah.
for them. We're talking about ours. We in our industry really like to pretend that like these things are separate, that like we can just show up
We're taught
and
that
like
they are.
be the professional. We're completely taught that they are. Be the professional, explain the things, have the person do the things, explain the things again. And I actually find that the clients that I connect with the most and get the closest to, I help the best.
Absolutely.
Right? The
What
clients
do you
that
mean
I'm
in that sense?
so if I'm trying to work with somebody that I cannot find common ground with, which really happened more in the beginning part of my career because now I cultivate a completely different experience in my work. If I'm talking to somebody who I really cannot get on common ground with, cannot connect with, cannot meaning
Can't get a good
as
read
I'm
or feel of
as
them.
I'm speaking to them, it seems our worldviews are completely different.
Right.
It seems our approaches to things or the way that we're thinking about things is completely different. That tends to put up barriers that I can't always get around with people.
Sure.
So, starting from a similar worldview, a similar experience, starting from not just looking at dogs in a similar fashion, but maybe looking at everything in a similar fashion
Right.
really helps me to help them. And this doesn't mean that, like, I don't mean to imply that people need to think exactly like I think to have this work. If that were true, I would have been out of business a long time ago. Like, I mean, that's just not reality. I mean that,
They need to be open and willing.
I'm thinking of a story that I'm gonna try to make like PC enough to share. But I went to a I went to a client's house when this was still how I operated.
What
And I
year?
pull up to the house.
Before
This
pandemic.
was probably, well, let's see. It was an election year. Um,
Oh,
it was a
oh,
really
okay. I see
it
where
was
this is going.
definitely far pre-pandemic. It was pre-pandemic, further than you're thinking. Not that election. Further
Oh,
back than you're thinking.
okay. All
And
right.
like maybe was it '08 an election year? I don't remember.
Oh, eight, oh,
Yeah.
nine. Yeah.
Anyway, that long ago.
Okay.
And I pulled up to their house and they had a sign for a candidate in their yard. And I bristle because I have strong feelings about this candidate that are not good. Okay.
Right.
And I go in and there were immediate things being said that made me just ways that the words were coming out
Irked
about
you.
certain things that were making me bristle further and bristle further. And by the end of this session, I have a brick wall up.
I was just gonna say, yep.
These people can't know who I am. They know who I am. They're kicking me out. Right? They can't know that a queer socialist is like sitting in their living room because they're just going to kick me out. But I'm here to help them. And I did my really, really best. And then I thought really hard about how I was going to navigate working with people in the world.
And weed through
And
that. Yeah.
and just this is a really real thing that, I had to get like, well, do I only want to work with people who vote a certain way? And like, how would that even be possible? Like, how would that
Yeah.
even be real? That's not even accessible for me to even start to think about. I'm not putting that in any survey. Like, that's not happening. But it really did get me thinking about like, how do I actually want to show up as a professional? Because I mentioned I put up a brick wall because like they couldn't know who I was. I'd like them to already know who I am when I show up. I'd like them to know who I am when
Right.
they choose me, actually.
Right. They should choose you
So that
based off
has
of that.
they should. So that has informed how I show up in the world. And I've decided to, because I was really trained to try to keep personal and political away from professional. Weren't we
We're
all?
always taught
Weren't
that.
we
Yeah.
all
We're
told?
always taught like just keep
Aren't
it
we always
separate.
told?
You need clients. You need money.
Yeah, just separate it out. Their money's green, as one of my early mentors said.
Oh man.
And now I'm like, I'm just showing up as me, and you know who I am when you hire me. I
Yep.
want to try to make sure that you do.
How do you set that up in your business?
Right.
You had to
So
know
I'm
that was
very-
coming.
yes, I'm number one, very lucky that most of the people that contact me are contacting me because they listen to the podcast.
Oh,
So
I like that.
that is honestly, my friend Graham told me way back in 2015 that I should start a podcast, and he completely changed the trajectory of my career by suggesting it. It was already in the back of my head, but I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't know nobody was doing it, and I didn't know how to do it or anything. And he was like, well, that's okay, because I do. And shout out to Graham. He totally set it up for me. He set it all up. Like, I didn't know what I was doing at all. You can go listen to the first episode and laugh so hard about how little I knew about what I was doing. But done is better than perfect, which is one of my favorite mantras. And I just
Yes.
put it out there. And so today, the vast majority of people that reach out to me have already listened to the podcast and already have a decent concept of me and the way that I think and the way that I talk. You can also, if you go to my website, which is the next place they'll go to try to contact me, like they'll listen to the podcast and then they'll go there and then they'll shoot me an email. I have banners right on the website.
Yeah, I've seen your website. Yeah.
Right.
It's very clear
So-
who you are and how you operate.
I try to make it really clear. And if I do get an email from someone who has been referred and has no idea who I am, which happens, it does happen. I literally send them back I say, hey, I would love it if you checked out these episodes. Like, they'll tell me what their problem is. If this feels like a person I want to work with, which that's just an intuition thing. If it feels like a person I want to work with, I'll say, I think you might want to, familiarize yourself with the way that I work before we dig a little bit deeper. Here's a way you can do that. I might tell them to just put their problem in the search bar on my website, because that will bring the podcast or the blogs to their attention that they might need. I also might tell them to jump into the membership, membership where they have access to the material in the community. I encourage most people to do that before they sign up for private coaching, because private coaching is such a huge commitment. I want people to be very sure about it before they do it.
Is it easier to get buy-in when you do that? Have you noticed? And to weed through a little bit
I
more?
literally don't even have to worry about buy-in at all because of all of
That's
this.
amazing.
I,
Oh,
in years, have not had a person question what I was telling them to do, which is a huge responsibility that I do not take lightly.
no.
Big responsibility that I don't take lightly, but also what an amazing barrier to just not have anymore.
That's fabulous. Yeah.
It's incredible. We can get straight to work because they're not saying, why do we have to take the dog for a walk in the woods? Like, that doesn't seem like has anything to do with what we're talking about. Like, they're just not saying it anymore because they already are. Most people, they're already trying it because they already heard that podcast and they are
Right.
like, they're already trying to do that stuff. So it's a really fantastic, I would encourage everyone to try to put their message out. Like, give away some content. Giving away some free information
Yes.
is
Oh my
actually a
God.
really fabulous way to get the right people asking you for help. We get really cagey about our stuff in the industry. And one of the people that I worked with early on in my career, who's kind of someone I really looked up to, was extremely cagey about everything. And like, no, we can't network with those other people. And no, we can't tell anybody what we're doing and blah, blah, blah. And like, all of that is gone out of my head now. All of that is completely gone. I will tell anybody what I do anytime that they ask. And I put out a ton of free information all the time. Because the gold is still like in my creatively building you a plan to solve your problem.
Right.
I'm never giving, like,
Exactly.
of course I'm not giving that away.
Right. You're just giving
Um,
them like information that they could take in themselves and digest and process. But if they want to really break things apart for their specific dog, they got to work with
there's a
you.
service for that. Yeah, there's a
Yes.
service for that. And so giving stuff away so that people know who you are, and also not being afraid to just be who you are so that the right people show up
Yes.
to work with you. I mean, that was the lesson that I learned that day that I pulled into that person's driveway, is to just actually just be loud about it. And then all the people that you don't want to talk to will just go away. Also, systems, like I have a folder in my inbox that I'm not going to tell you what it's called. I will when you're not recording anymore if you, but I have a folder in my inbox where my assistant, shout out to Cami, you're the best, puts every email that I get that is unnecessarily unkind, just a nastygram for the sake of being a nastygram. Like, I don't see any of that. Absolutely, if I receive something that's constructive and important, she's good enough that she'll go, when you have the
should,
bandwidth,
yeah.
you gotta read this one. Cool. Perfect. That's always fine. But anything that is just nasty or unkind, because that happens, it just goes right there.
Oh,
Also,
I
just
need a
if
Cami.
it's on social media, also just delete it. Like, and have somebody else deleting it. Just delete it. No one needs it. Don't engage it. Just get rid of it. Nobody needs any of this in their life. Like, just curate everything so that, and then here's what happens, Mandy, is I just don't even get any of it anymore because I don't engage with it. So like, it just doesn't even happen.
Dude, that has to, like, I'm sure that is so helpful for your mental health, not
It is,
taking that
because it's
in.
really, because I can't not care.
Yeah. Well, and
Right. So
it's your business. Yeah.
the
How can you
advice of
not?
just don't worry about those people. Like, those people don't matter. Like, is such bullshit, because don't, just like I'm never going to tell a dog, like,
Don't
don't
look at
care about
them.
fireworks. How
Yeah.
silly. They're not actually going to hurt you. Yeah, right. But they're viscerally, something is telling them to be afraid of it. Like, this is a natural thing for us, is to be upset by those kinds of comments. Like, somebody called me something on YouTube once that I'm not even going to repeat. And that was when I was like, oh, you can turn comments off on YouTube. It's done.
You know how long I had comments off on Woof Culture? Like,
Yeah,
at least a year
I'm
plus.
sure.
Yeah.
And you know what? Do it anytime you need to. Just turn them
Yep.
off. Like, just anytime you don't want to hear it, just turn them off. You want to make a controversial shirt, make it, and then turn off the comments. Like, just do whatever you want to do. Like, it's so important to, like, I know it's very cliche to be like, just be you and blah, blah, blah. But like, truly, there's a second part of that statement though. It's just be you and then don't apologize for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is such a good segue to get into, because I feel like, oh, social media, it's such a nasty beast at times. And I think
Mm,
a lot of the times, we both have a lot of dog trainer friends. And so I'm sure we both see a lot of friends where it's like, oh, this person said something to me. This trainer commented this to me and said I wasn't doing it right. And I didn't get this many
mm,
likes. I didn't make that pretty of a reel. I didn't get bleh, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden that turns into a reflection of their worth and how good of a trainer they are. And maybe they shouldn't do
Mhm.
this. I've been there. I've gotten into who hasn't gotten into that mindset. But I think that we need to acknowledge that social media is a marketing tool. Like you said, putting out the free content, you make a, blog or a podcast episode, that is content that you can split and break apart, put out for free. You don't need to necessarily engage with it. And I think that a lot of
Right.
times they get so caught up in trying to provide so much information in something so small that people are just going to scroll past. When it's like, I don't know. I feel
Yeah.
there's too much importance put into it when it's like you're a dog trainer, the training and the business aspect is way more important than likes and views.
It is. Social media is this like necessary evil because you do need to have a presence to have a
Right.
business that's going to thrive and run. Like,
Right.
unfortunately, that's just where we are. Is that, and like, I give it 10 years, it'll look completely different, but that's where we are right now.
Right.
And so I have a couple tricks for that. One of them is that I am on Instagram, but I don't engage a lot on Instagram. I
You
post
don't.
things and then I leave. Yeah, I don't engage a lot on it. I think it's a little bit flawed. Like, I think I could do better for myself if I learned more about Instagram and was smarter about it, but on it, I kind of don't need it in my life. So I don't engage a lot on Instagram. I do have TikTok, which has been really interesting. And people have been probably meaner to me on TikTok than
I
like
hate
anywhere
TikTok.
else ever. And it is kind of, that's just like how TikTok is. So, like, when I learned that actually TikTok is literally just the high school cafeteria,
Yes. Oh,
I
good
was
description. Yes. It's like
I
a
was
mean
able
Instagram.
it is, and so now I just, like, I will put something on TikTok that I know is gonna piss people off a little bit, just because it doesn't even have to be bad, like,
No.
they're looking to be mad about something. And then I'll just leave it alone because then the comments will go wild, and
Yep.
now suddenly I have, like, a gazillion new views and a gazillion new followers because the comments have gone wild because they're fighting with each other in the comments,
And you didn't do anything. All you
and
did
I
was
just didn't even
post
look
it.
at it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't even look at it. So that's kind of how I let that happen. I do what's amazing, Mandy, is that the message, basically the hill I will die on is that dogs need off-leash time in nature.
Yes.
And also the thing that I'm most attacked for is saying that.
Oh, I know. I've seen it. Yeah. I
I know
know.
you know, right? Like, everybody's seen it, right? And what's fascinating is people are like, "How do you deal with that?" And I'm like, "Listen, if I sit down in a kindergarten classroom with a bunch of 5-year-olds that are eating Play-Doh and they're like, 'You're so stupid for not eating Play-Doh. How dare you suggest that you eat real food and not Play-Doh?' Like, I don't need to worry about it. I know I don't want to eat Play-Doh. So I'm fine. So
You're killing me with
there's
these analogies.
oh, it's one of my superpowers is the metaphor. So when people get really mad at me about this, I just know that, like, I'm at a place with it that they're not at, and like it doesn't involve me. When
Right.
they want to come down my throat about it, it just isn't it. I'm already dying on the hill. Like, I don't need to talk to you about it. Like, I am already sure. So for instance, like, there's a really popular thing that people do for agility dogs. And I'm not going to say what it is because I really don't want to hear it from people. So there's a really popular thing that people do for agility dogs that I don't do for my dogs. I am sure that it's not a good idea. I am sure that I don't want to do it.
You know your stance.
And so therefore, I don't get upset about people saying it's the best thing ever. So what's interesting to me about that is that people do get mad at me about this off leash thing. Whereas like this other thing that's a wellness thing that I'm sure is a bad idea, I don't get upset about them talking about it. Because I'm sure.
Right.
So I know that this is coming from a place of they know that I'm right and they feel like they can't give it to the dog. And so they're mad at me about it. Fine. That's a completely different place for you to be than what you're saying. So anyway, that was a long ramble about that. But essentially, that's the only thing that I still really deal with on social media is people getting mad about that particular message. In which case I just say the message again and then say it louder for the people in the back and then just like keep going because I'm sure. But social media, like that's kind of just how you have to deal with it because you aren't going to not care. Like quit pretending you're not going to care and don't engage with things that feel yucky to you to engage with
Ooh, let's talk about that a little more.
in general. So yeah, let's go into that.
Well, because I think I have to take a big breath before that because I'm holding my breath and I'm not breathing and I'm getting frustrated because social media does this to me.
Totally.
So everyone take a breath. It's because a lot of the times, and I know you know this as well, that someone will come on someone's page and just say, well, why are you doing it that way? You didn't explain it that in the 60-second video that you just put up. And it's like, oh, you know what? Fuck me. I'm so sorry that I didn't explain everything in a 60-second clip
In a
for you
60-second video.
for you to get for free. Because something I like to point out to people is majority of the Instagram followers, like all of them pretty much, they're not paying you.
Right. No.
That is the thing. And I feel like a lot of the
They're
times people are
especially
like,
not paying you if they're there criticizing you.
right.
because
And they probably don't
That's
follow
not your
you.
clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to talk about how to navigate the nastiness in that, because sometimes people do show up with genuine curiosity and questions. And I think a lot of the times, especially the newer trainers, will feel the need to respond to everything because it's like, well, I'm not really sure how they feel. And then it's like, ooh, that person was nasty to me. And now I have this feeling of anytime someone interacts with me, it might be like that.
Okay, so definitely not engaging with anything that makes you feel yucky, which is a skill.
Yes.
Because the first thing is recognizing that it makes you feel yucky. So
Trusting your
recognizing it
gut.
is the first thing. Really, really actually not that easy to do. We've kind of been trained to ignore those kinds of feelings. But I can turn that into something that benefits me one of 3 different ways. If somebody is basically saying you didn't tell me right, or you didn't tell me enough, or like I don't understand what you're doing, or you're doing it wrong or whatever, I can refer them to a colleague who does this better than me or bigger than me or louder than me or whatever. That benefits everyone. I can send them to a paid resource that I have where they can get that information. They may or may not do it, but that's my favorite option, is to say, I explain this in depth over there. You can go do that for a fee. Or I just make it work for me by turning it into more content. So if I explain something and you're saying, but what about this? I can just make another video that says, well, what about this? Here it is.
Ah.
So those are kind of the 3 ways that I can turn that into a benefit. And if it's really truly just nastiness, Mandy, I just ignore it.
I was just gonna ask, when do you decide, like, okay, screw off, block and delete? Not gonna take that in.
Anything that's ever said that is like personal,
I was just gonna
that's
say personal.
immediate delete, block. So like the YouTube comment that led me to turn off comments on YouTube was like a comment about my body. That's a no. Like that's never on the table for you to be talking about.
And how is that relevant to training?
So
Like,
stupid. So stupid.
just let's pick everything apart. Okay.
So dumb.
Thanks,
So
Bill. God.
Oh, it's so dumb. So anything that's about that, or anything that's about me as a person, anything that's about any of the beliefs that we were talking about before, like anything that's about that is an immediate no.
Core values.
And then
yeah.
I also have I encourage everybody to kind of have their personal deal breakers too. Like anybody who points out that there's a problem with the way that I train because I have border collies. So I obviously don't know anything because border collies come out of the womb trained. I don't engage with that discourse. Like, first of all, border collies are terrible. Anybody who has worked, are they easy to train? Yes. Are they a huge problem in every other possible way? Also, yeah. But I had somebody say to me once, she said this to my face, but, interesting. She said that people who can't train dogs get Goldens, and people who can't even train Goldens get border collies.
For those that are not watching on YouTube, I feel quite dumbfounded by that statement.
So anything that's like that, or same vibe is like, cool bro, show me with the Malinois. Like same vibe. I just don't care. Good training's good training.
Like, why do you need to see it with a specific dog?
Training a Malinois comes with, I have worked with plenty of Malinois. Training those comes with plenty of specific challenges that are very different from training a Basset Hound. Or yes, dogs are different. How cool is that? I don't really engage with that's great, except you only got it done because it's a border collie. I don't engage with that, because then I did get a Nordic Spitz breed that somehow everybody just thinks that she also came out of the womb trained. I don't know.
Clearly it says a lot about your training.
Right. I've decided it doesn't matter what I have. So anything that's like that vibe, I'm out. The things that I will engage with are things that are anytime anybody points out anything that I've said that is maybe not inclusive to any group I'm going to genuinely try to learn from that discourse. That's
Of
a rule
course.
for me.
Yeah.
So that's a rule for me. But like outside of that, if it's literally just criticism for criticism's sake, I don't care. And
Why should you? Yeah.
I just move on. And so I think that this sounds like that I never get upset or that I'm like a big ego person, but I'm actually upset quite often. I operate in a kind of low level being upset state. So like it's actually just that I'm trying to protect the tiny bit of bandwidth that I have from any of that crap. So like that's really what it is that I have just learned that I can only take so much and can only do so much. And so people criticizing me just for no reason in comment sections is just not something that I don't even read it, honestly. Like, you
No.
know that I'm not active on Instagram because I just, it's too much. Like I have a private Instagram account that's mine. That's just a personal account. That's the one that I'm scrolling, and I don't scroll the business one. And I
Same.
just
Yeah.
post things on business, right? So like if I enjoy social media for myself, then I'm going to just do that for myself. And I'm doing that, and it's very separate from business stuff. But I'm a huge fan of the block and delete, honestly. It's big.
It's a big
It's great.
mental health,
It's
barrier.
great.
I'm glad that you touched on having a personal and a business Instagram, because I think I
Mm,
see a lot of trainers, and if you feel triggered by this, I'm sorry, but I see a lot of trainers that have only a business account, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Because the content that is coming up in your explore page, coming up in your feed, it's all dog training. And how can your brain relax when it's
yeah.
constant work and competition and, "Ooh, how did they do this?" And then your brain is
Yeah.
constantly going. Like, you're not giving your time to enjoy, like, hiking trails or restaurants or
hmm
whatever it is you
hmm
like personally.
And I think that I think instead in our field, it's like you either hate social media and you're only on it for business. And so you don't look at anything, or you've learned how to enjoy certain aspects of it because it's actually designed for us to like it. Like wink,
Right.
wink, like they did it on purpose. And so, yeah, the majority of my private Instagram is, I mean, all of my friends are dog people. So like
Same.
it's actual close friends. So I am seeing their dogs. And then yeah, other stuff that I care
It's
about and
more
other stuff that I'm
selective.
interested in.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think I can definitely say that most of my burnout has stemmed in the past from social media and not feeling adequate, not feeling enough, everything we just talked about. So I'm very curious to hear how you have navigated burnout, because it happens to the best of us. I did a whole episode that just came out about me recovering from burnout. So I
Yeah.
would love to hear how you acknowledge when it comes and work to bounce back from it.
For me, it is typically a result of not paying attention to my personal wellness. It is usually not about work. If I telescope out, it's usually not about that. It is usually about other challenges, personal life challenges, or not being able to kind of address those needs. So like when I started out as a dog trainer, I started out in a way that I think is really typical of a lot of dog trainers, in that I was working all day in a dog daycare. And then I was teaching classes at night. And then I was seeing private clients on my days off. And I did not make enough money in the daycare portion to not do that,
Right.
because we live in a capitalist hellscape in which no one is paid what they need to be paid in positions like that.
Right.
And so it was really typical for me to arrive at the place that because I taught, it was all at the same place, to arrive at 9 a.m. and not leave till like 10. It was really typical. And that was like 4 days a week. And then I was still competing in agility on the weekends. So a lot of times I would go compete in agility on the weekends. And then, I mean, Mandy, it was ridiculous. And also, I have some chronic health concerns that, like, I literally physically can't do stuff like that. And like most people can't do that kind of thing for very long. But if I'm really real about what my body wants me to do and how much I want to rest now, which I try to be really aware of now, I don't understand actually how I didn't just wind up in the hospital. And I remember one day I had like 20 minutes to eat a granola bar before my class started. And I was looking at like a dog magazine or like a dog trainer publication or something, like probably the Chronicle of the Dog. I don't know. And somebody had written an article about like being our best selves for our students. And there was a line in it, and I apologize that I don't remember who wrote this, because it was pivotal for me, obviously. There was a line in it that just said, "You owe your students to show up like fed and rested. And I just like had a melt. Like I just started crying because I was so exhausted. I was barely eating. So I, like I said, was like shoving a granola bar in my face before I taught class. And I just like melted down.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to fix it.
No, because when
Like,
you're
I had
in
to pay,
it, you
right?
don't
Because
know
I
how to
had to,
dig
well, I
out.
had to pay my rent.
Right.
I had to pay my rent and I had to buy groceries. And honestly, it was even a time that like sometimes my dogs would eat oatmeal and eggs for dinner
Yep.
and I drank a beer.
Yep.
And that's
Oh
all
God, that
anybody
hits
had.
so close to
And that,
home. Yeah.
like that was reality. So what the hell was I supposed to do about it? So I'm actually extremely fortunate that I really hit a place where it was just, I knew it was not sustainable anymore. And I asked my parents for help and I was able to, I actually moved back into their house and started the cognitive canine from their house.
I like how that kind of stemmed the rest of the career though, more or less, to
Yeah.
acknowledge
I mean,
that.
it was really, it was not without sacrifice for everyone involved. It was something that I did not want to do for my mental health and did for my mental health long term. And, just grew from there. And I had a person that I really looked up to that I talked about business at a time, and I talked to her about it because I was like, I really don't want to do this. And it also, we're so raised in like you work 3 jobs if you have to work 3 jobs, like that's just what you have to do. Yeah, blah blah blah, like bullshit. And oh, she's like, no, no, no. She's like, this is the gift. You need to take it. She was like, had no questions that she was like, no, this is the right thing for you to do. And I'm really grateful that she said that because I was like, okay, I guess it's the right thing to do. So then that's what I did. But honestly, like when I was in that, like there was no screening of anybody. I took anybody who called. I taught these classes.
You were
I think
hungry in
I
more
taught
ways
like
than
three,
one.
three, yeah, I was hustling and hustling
Yeah.
and hustling. And I felt, it created other, it was just,
It ripples. It
right,
goes,
right,
yeah.
like a
It
10
bleeds into
page
everything else.
dissertation about like how everything was a disaster because of everything else. And I just want anybody who's like maybe in that phase to like look for the hand up, or like maybe it is that, and I considered this strongly. Maybe it is that it's not the super low paying job that's like in the field, but it's another job that might pay you a little bit more that's not in the field that you allow to sustain you while you build the other pieces of your business. And then big time, I was working for other people at that time as well. And so I wasn't able to set prices myself and was actually told how greedy I was when I went to them and said, like, we're not even charging as much as this big box store and we're doing a way better job. And I just now, whenever I talk to like young trainers, which I do a lot, I say, what are you charging? They'll tell me every single time, Mandy. I'm like, cool, you need to double that next week, babe. Like, this is
Yes.
not enough. What are you doing?
It's like, well, I need clients. And it's like, okay, but you don't want all the clients. Like you do, but the right ones. And we'll get into that.
Very
Yeah.
scary. It's very scary to raise prices when you already don't have enough people coming in the door. It's
Right.
really, really scary to do that, which is again where like maybe you learn how to make frappuccinos. Like maybe there is a job that you can do part of the like, I hate that that's the reality, but
Oh,
you
I
do
hate
have
it.
to, we all have to pay bills and whatever else. And if you're going to burn out on dogs, and also it's a really low paying industry if you're working for somebody else, like it just
Yes.
is. Maybe get out of it. Maybe look at some other. I used to like fantasize about just going to a job and just being there for a set amount of time and then leaving and then having my life after. Like I used to completely fantasize about that. So if I ever catch myself fantasizing about that, I know
We need to reevaluate. Yeah.
Gotta overhaul something because I've never wanted that. So
Why am I daydreaming of being a barista? I don't know.
right. Why do I wish I worked at a Barnes and Noble? That might be burnout is what that might be. So other times that I've burnt out, like I honestly like see it coming and I usually change something. I usually just change something drastically. So sometimes it is a price restructure. The way that I've worked with private clients has changed a lot of times since I started doing it virtually.
Have you noticed your mental health has kind of gotten better as that's changed?
Every single time I've changed it, yeah. Every single time I've changed it. And it's basically, I love my job and I get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment out of it. And if it starts to feel like a burden and if it starts to feel like something I don't want to do, it's time to change it again. Like, don't normalize this being a slog. Like, don't normalize hating it and dreading it. It's not a field that you'll survive if you don't like it. Like, you really have to love it or you're not going to survive it. And there might be there might be like a way for you to love it, or there might be something else that you need that is adjacent that you can do, which I'm sure you know nothing
Hi.
about.
Hello. Yeah. Two careers out of that one. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, for me, if it starts to feel like a slog, if it starts to feel like a burden, honestly, I have to be very honest with you. My life, my personal life is very hard. There have been very few times in my life when there wasn't something freaking catastrophic going
Always.
on
Yep.
that it's so hard, right? And so I've just decided that my work is not also going to be that.
Oh, I love that. I don't love
It's
that
just
you
not.
have the hard
No.
life things, but
Like everybody does, right? So I've
Right.
just decided that life is hard enough that my work does not have to be that hard.
yeah, it sounds
So
so easy, but it
I
takes a lot
know,
of
and I don't,
training.
it has taken a long time for me to get there, to let that be
Right.
real life. And it's taken,
It's a learned skill.
build it. Yeah, putting the podcast out every single week when nobody was listening to it yet. Like, I'm just doing it and letting it grow and trusting that it would. And truly, I don't have any other skills. So it was going to be dogs or it was nothing. So, like,
That's not true.
I mean, it was going to be dogs or it was going to be something I'd probably have to go back to school for, which I didn't want to do. So, like, here we are. And so I think not normalizing the slog, not normalizing the like, oh, I have to do this again today. Like, just no, like, you should like it, actually.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think that's a great way to segue into delegating and being able to task
Mhm.
out, because that is a great way for you to feel like bogged down with work and be like, oh, I hate this. I don't want to do this. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of the times, I mean, we talked before we hit record that I think a lot of us, myself included, don't feel like we can afford to delegate because it's hard
Mm.
and hello economy and inflation. But also
Yeah.
for me, one of the biggest hurdles has been feeling like I deserve that. It's like, okay, woof culture has been around for, oh my God, it's been around for 4 years now. And I still cannot allow myself to get a VA, even if it's just checking my email, because I feel like that's such a mundane task that I would be better suited delegating something heavier. Although I like to control things and I'm like, they're not going to do it
Oh
the way I'm
God,
going
me
to do
too.
it. But it's like, it's
Oh,
email.
Mandy, they're not. That's okay. They're not. So this is
But I need to be okay with that. Yeah.
yes. So delegating, super hard. But here's what you can't delegate. You cannot delegate design. You cannot delegate the creative process that
Yeah.
you have,
Yeah.
right? Therefore, you need all the bandwidth for that.
All I do is
Like,
creative
just,
work.
that's it. You're like, well, that's all I do. So the VA, like having an assistant, even if they literally work for you for 2 hours a week, which like, in my very beginning of the process when I was working 13-hour days, I couldn't have afforded that either. What's
Right.
fascinating about that though, Mandy, is that I could have sooner than I did pay one. Like I could have done it sooner than I did it.
Was
and
it figuring out how to fit it into your budget and figuring out where that would come out in the wash kind
No,
of?
it was literally just like letting go of. Actually, the first person that I started paying was not a VA. The first person I started paying was someone to actually handle my books and my money,
And that's a big
because
one.
I'm
Yeah.
really, really bad with that. Also, it's not just that I'm bad at it. Like it causes me extreme anxiety and stress.
It's
So
okay.
now my rule is that if something is causing me anxiety and I don't actually have to be the person doing it, somebody else will be doing it. So that's the first thing that happened. That allowed me to know where the money was going and like be able to actually look at it and know that I could pay somebody to then handle my email, etc. So then moved that direction. And other things like having a housekeeper, like having somebody come clean your house. Like
I'm
twice a
not there
month
yet. I want
too.
that so bad.
Like, here's the thing about that is that I felt so, I say this in past tense, like it's not here anymore. I feel so much shame about that because I was raised to like just keep my own space clean. And like, yeah, like
Oh, yeah.
feel shame about it. And it also makes my life so much better and so much easier. And so it's things like that as your business grows, like rather than just like squirreling it all away and pretending that you don't have any money, like spend money to make your life a little bit easier. That's okay to do. And so yeah, having a VA is, I think if you're a dog trainer working virtually, especially, I don't know how you
Yeah.
don't have one.
Yeah.
And if you're a dog trainer that works in person, like you still are dealing with how much email, how
Client
much inquiry.
intake, invoicing, follow-up,
Yeah,
like
but working with somebody to also just streamline those systems so that those things are not hard. Like I don't give people that write up that takes 2 hours to write after an initial consult anymore. Nobody reads them. Like the rare
that's
person who
true.
reads them
Yeah.
is a rare person. So what I do instead, because it's virtual, is I record it and they can have that. And I take a few notes and then I build them because I don't do just a one-off consult. Like that's just how they begin coaching is we start with
Okay.
a call. And so then the notes that I take can get put into their virtual platform. I've just taken a few of them. They get the recording. Since I stopped giving people this massive write-up that took so long to write, that initial consult so much lighter. It doesn't feel so hard. It just doesn't feel so hard. Why was I doing that for so long? There are things that like maybe it's something that's normalized in your in the business that you don't actually have to do like that.
And I feel like a lot of the times we're encouraged, coached, taught to do it this way because this is the basic way to do it,
This
and
is
this
the
is
way
how
we've
we've been
always done
doing
it. And
it.
this is the way we're all doing it, right? I do find, and I don't know if you find this, but I've also, and you had them on your podcast, I've talked to Taylor and Gio over at Smart Bitch about this too, that like
Ugh.
clients do best with like quick, short interactions from you that are
Yes.
frequent. If you are handing people a homework sheet and saying, see you next week, you're not actually doing the best job that you can. And instead, setting up, okay, on Tuesday, I'm going to text you and I need, like they use Marco Polo, I think, to just do
Right.
like, I need a fast video of me doing this. That's
Yep.
your homework today. As opposed to like, here's your homework sheet. I used to give people a handout.
Oh, yeah. Same. Yeah.
On what we just talked about. How stupid. It wound up in their trash every single time, I'm sure.
And the chances of them actually reading it, I had maybe like 2 clients that actually like put it up on their
can
fridge.
get a client that reads
Yeah.
it or puts it on their fridge. They're so cute and fine, but like
Not
nobody's
everyone's
actually
doing
it.
that.
So just
No.
really streamlining all of those things into like what is actually working rather than this is how I assume everything needs to look. And then also if something is important to your clients, but it's really hard for you, the way that you make that work is you charge more for it. That's the way that you make that work. If you can't get rid of it because it's really needed, but it's really hard for you, then you should probably be charging more. So it's the same with when I'm training dogs, I talk about ratio of reinforcement to effort. So like if the dog's given me a 10 for this, I better pay him with a 10 reinforcer. And that might be the ball on rope, or it might be like rotisserie chicken, or it might be like whatever.
Right.
But think about yourself like that. If you're feeling like you don't want to do something, there's a reason. A lot of times it's just that you're not being paid appropriately to do it. A lot of the time.
Well, and I'm so glad you touched on that because I think we have control of what we're getting paid, first of all. But second of all, it's a lot of the times we think or we'll come across a training situation where it's like, whoa, this is out of my wheelhouse. This is more than like I'm ready for. Oh, maybe I should get paid accordingly for this. We never think that. But like you just compared with like how we are reinforcing our animals, we don't like that. And I say this so many times in the podcast, but it's like so many times we see it, the behavior aspect, and we see all this getting applied in training, but we can't go, oh, look. And if anyone is not watching YouTube, I'm literally taking something and moving it to the other side because it's like, oh, wait, it fits here too. This box can totally go over here. But there's that disconnect. And it's astonishing because we all know so much about behavior, but we don't apply it to ourselves in that aspect.
Amazing, right? It's like we think it doesn't apply to us. Of course it applies to us. Or we
don't think we deserve that.
Like, in like the shitty ways. Like instead of the great ways like this, like everybody deserves to be paid what the job is worth. Like
A living wage. Yeah.
If the job is a 10, then you should be making a baseline. We don't get to withhold food from the dog. Like The dog gets fed the calories it needs every single day, whether it works for you or not. The rest is a bonus. And then if the dog gives you something that's worth rotisserie chicken, it gets rotisserie chicken, as opposed to, we all cringe at that trainer who's like, I only train with kibble. Like I never train with anything more than that because blah, blah. Like I only train with dogs basic food. And like, cool. I don't know why that makes you feel better about yourself, but like,
like, oh, you're boring.
Cringe.
Cool.
We all cringe at that guy. So let's not be that guy with ourselves also and kind of go, no, I'm only going to make this much.
Let me pay myself with a saltine cracker.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
That's fine. That's enough. That's fine. There's a lot of principles like that. And I think just recognizing too that like so often we just as adult humans are operating constantly in negative reinforcement contingencies. Like clearing the inbox is a negative reinforcement contingency. You just feel relief when you've done it. That's why you're doing it.
I do it every morning.
All right. So recognizing that is so important. And then just also accepting that there's a truth, which is that we all deserve to live in an environment that is rich in positive reinforcement. That's us, that's them.
Yeah.
And we could kind of like speculate that depression sometimes comes from just this chronic lack of positive reinforcement. I don't know if you've ever worked with a dog that you kind of looked at it and you just thought like, dog just seems depressed to me. Like they just see, and then you tear apart their life and you look at everything and they got nothing going on that like feels good. Everything they're doing is avoidance of.
They're told they're wrong. That's not right. That's not right. But tell me
or
what
like,
is like
right. Or even they're like an ex puppy mill or whatever dog that's been saved, but now they're in a house where they don't know what's going on and they don't know how to access positive reinforcement and they're just hiding in a corner.
Right.
Like I have felt akin to one of those dogs a few times, but like, just recognizing you deserve to get paid just like they deserve to get paid. And whether you deserve it or not, you need it. So you may as well set it up so it's happening.
Yeah.
I think the idea that we get what we deserve in this life is such a farce that we can't even go there. But you do have control over it. So control it.
Right. Like, for example, when we lived in San Francisco, my husband and I, we had a walking and training business, and it was my husband, me, and one employee. And San Francisco, expensive cost of living, expensive rent. If I did not move my car on a certain day, I would get a $75 ticket. Like, it was stressful. And I would walk anywhere from 6 to 8 dogs twice a day, and then I would go do training. So yeah, we had money because we were charging clients, but we were charging them the right prices. And if they didn't like our prices, goodbye. Go find a cheaper dog walker then, because we need to live. And so we had it set that we would increase our prices yearly. And we would just be like, look, like rent went up, our prices go up. And it's not like we would say, oh, hey, it went from $28 to $38. No, it would go up by like $2. A lot of people that are hiring a trainer, hiring a walker, they're not going to really bat an eye at that because they're going to understand you need to feed yourself and live. And there were times where our clients would push back and we'd be like, look, sorry, we need to pay our employee and live.
Yeah. And what I find is that some individual business owners find it so punishing when they lose even one client. Like if they raise the prices and they lose
in the beginning,
one client,
it can feel that way.
That feels so punishing to them that they go, I knew it. I shouldn't have done this in the first place. And again, we can bring this into dog training and dog behavior, because if you've got a dog that's kind of skeptical, like there may be that dog that's scared to leave the house. Like we've all kind of worked with those dogs that as soon as they walk on the front porch, they're like, I don't think I want to eat anymore.
This is threshold.
Worried. Yeah. So like if we're talking about that dog and you convince that dog to take a couple of steps out to their mat on the driveway, and then like huge loud truck goes by, backfires, and they bolt for the house. Yeah, that's a bad deal. That's not a good day, because now you're back at square one and you got to build back up, because what you need is reinforcement history, and you might need to build that reinforcement history with small changes. So if you're charging $75 an hour, and I think you should be charging $500 an hour, I'm not going to suggest you change it tomorrow to $500. Not just because of your clientele, but because of you. Because you need to feel that positive reinforcement. And I'll say, okay, how scary on a scale of 1 to 10 does it feel for you to change that to 100 next week or whatever? And if they're like, oh, it's a 5 or 6, I'm like, okay, then it's 100 next week. That's what we're going to do next. And like, you're going to lose clients sometimes when you raise your prices. But what I coach people on is just that if you don't have some people deciding that you cost too much for them, you're probably
You're not charging enough. Yeah. No.
Well, and I will also say, because I know I'm hearing it and I understand it, I charge what I charge so that I also can throw somebody a bone when I want to.
Right.
And when I see fit. Like, I had a friend who I wanted to help out a couple years ago with their dog, who I knew did not have the income to support that endeavor, who I just helped for free. I could do that. I chose to do that. And it's not something that I do frequently because I would burn out if I did.
Right. I was just going to say, yeah.
That's a problem. But I can do that. Or I can throw somebody a discount if I think this is a situation that I'd really, really like to help this person, and I really, really know that this is a genuine problem for them. I can make that choice if I want to. And I can only do that because I'm charging appropriately all the time. And the positive reinforcement is built up. It is totally scary to raise your prices. It's totally scary to restructure. You would think by now that, because I've done it so many times, that I would be like feeling good about it. But like, I still get like some trepidation about it. But it's really important for us as an industry to be charging enough that we can live, and structuring so that that also works. Because like, physically, like if I were teaching group pet dog training classes, which I don't teach anymore, but if I were, there is actually a cap to kind of what people will pay for that because of what they're used to, like what they look around. So I would set my prices, according to what I thought was appropriate for what I was providing in the area that I was providing it in. And then also, or even just not just groups, but like physical in-person lessons. There's only so many of them that I can actually do in a day.
Right, exactly.
So then I need structuring to make sure
that.
that I can make enough, right? Like, my sister is a professional dog walker in Denver, and there's only, she can't walk 30 dogs a day. It's
right. It maxes out at a certain point.
Yeah.
And so you need to charge for that max. Yeah.
So exactly. And then maybe if that's also not possible, then maybe that is where you're bringing in contractors and you're like, there's always, it's funny that I feel this way about business because I don't feel this way about, it's really hard for me to feel this way about life. There's actually always a solution. There's always a solution.
You say that and I feel the same way.
Like, in business, there's always a solution. There's always a restructure. There's always a change. There's always a price change. There's always something that kind of can be done if I am doing the thing that works for me to be doing, because there wouldn't be a solution for me if I were like trying to think of a job that I wouldn't want. But basically anything.
Bartender.
Yeah. A bartender. I would be terrible at that. There isn't a solution for me. A waitress. That would be terrible at this. There wouldn't be solutions for me to make that work. It wouldn't be like, be more personable with the guests so that you get better tips. Like, that's the kind of stuff that people talk about, and that sort of, forget it. Like, it's not going to happen.
I'm just thinking, because like I did hair for like 6 to 8 years, and same thing. Like, there was a ceiling for me, and I just was like, okay, I am tapped out. I was like, had serious disordered eating at that point. Like, I was just like, they're not going to be, there wasn't a solution where I could see it getting better for me and my mental health. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just hit a point where I was like,
so then maybe it's
done.
just a complete restructure. It's a complete go do something else. And again, like, I get it. If you're in the position that I was in when I was working 13-hour days on average, and like somebody saying to me that there's a solution, I would be like, F off. I would have some language for them. So I get it. So if you're like mad about that answer, I hear me that like, yeah, there's also true systemic problems that are just not your fault also.
Yes.
And don't blame yourself for that stuff. But I do think that, like, everything circles back to everything else. Like, the first order of business is for people to see who you are, trust you, and want you to do this thing for them.
All those factors, they're going to see your worth and your value and be willing to pay that if it aligns with their values.
Yeah. Like, if you're the right person for them, they're going to see it and they're going to gravitate towards it. And continuing to kind of work on, I think, in this, I don't think we have time to like get into imposter syndrome, which I put in quotes, but like I feel like you have talked about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, probably at length.
Almost
like,
every episode.
With like everybody, almost every episode.
We'll bring you on for another one.
Here's my like hot take on it though, is that that there's a big difference. Like imposter syndrome is defined as a person who is extremely accomplished and yet does not believe in their accomplishments or does not see that they're bringing value to the field, like thinks that they have fooled people with
Oh,
their
hi.
accomplishments, right? So
Yeah.
like that, right? That's imposter. That's it. And then also just look at a case and feeling like I'm not sure I know how to do this. That's not imposter syndrome.
That's you just aren't sure.
Yes. And that's also okay. Like embrace that. That's not like this other
Question
thing
it.
going on.
Yeah.
Like that's like, okay, who can help me then?
Right.
Like build your cabinet, do those cases, take those cases on with help of colleagues, get better at them, and you will feel more. Because I do think a lot of people are like, I can't put that stuff out because I'm not sure it's right or whatever, right?
Bounce it around. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
why
just
we
talk to
network.
colleagues, right? Like be networking and talking to colleagues and, playing with different ideas and getting better and growing
Right.
so that you do feel more comfortable and safer taking on more and more stuff. And if you don't want any of that, also own that. Like if you love to teach puppy K and that's what you
Yes, I
want to
was
do
just
all
going to
day
get into
long,
this. Yes.
then just please do it. Seriously.
We need more
Like,
of that. So, yes.
honestly, like I've got a friend who is a really skilled trainer, could work with intense aggression cases, instead does puppy day train. That's what she does. She's great at it. Goes great for everybody. There's no reason for her to be working with these really hard, because for her, it's not satisfying. It's draining.
Right.
Right.
So there's some people that really thrive in that and they love it and
Right.
they're passionate about
Puppy day
it.
train.
Right. And then
Yeah.
that turns you into the, puppy person or the aggression person. And then what's going to happen is everyone's going to be referring everyone else to you. And then, hey, I don't take aggression cases. I only do puppies. Oh, hey, you do aggression. Let me throw that at you. And then that's how we network. And I think a lot of the times we forget that that's actually really good to niche down. And before I let you go, I did want to talk about, because Marissa brought you on, or I brought Marissa on, and we talked about this too. And she referenced you of how you told her, like, do you have a list of what you will and will not take on? And when she said that, I was like, oh, we need to bring Sarah on to explain that.
Yeah, Marissa is somebody who I talk to a lot about business and cases and things like that. And she was lamenting at some point about some type of case she doesn't like and she just doesn't want to take them. And I was like, oh yeah, so don't. Let's get the list of what you want to take and what you don't want to take.
I think a lot of people are going, what?
And
I can do that?
Like, I feel really fortunate that there are fantastic resources for separation anxiety now that I can just send all of those people that direction.
Right. That wasn't the case, 10 so years
It wasn't.
ago. No.
It wasn't. So I took some of those cases. I don't like them. It feels like watching paint dry to me. Like I don't like it. And it's very high stakes. It's like extremely high stakes paint drying. And that sounds like hell on earth to me. Like that stinks to me. So I give all of those away. Like I was like, let's hear it. What do you not want to, you get a certain email. Like what about this is, I don't want to do it.
What makes you feel icky and like,
oh, what makes you feel yucky? If you read this email and like, I'm at a
you
point where, like, if I read
cringe.
the email and I just get a like response, I'm just
You're
referring.
like, oh, that's
also,
not for
if
me.
you have emailed me and I've given you a referral, that doesn't necessarily mean that you made me cringe. Like probably it's not even true if you're a person who would listen to this. I just also sometimes don't have room, often don't have room. Sometimes don't have bandwidth for specifically your type of problem because it might be one that's a little harder for me that I take if I have kind of the mental space for it.
Right.
Might be one that I just know that there's a better person for the job and I just send you to them.
I
Because you
love
might
that you
not know
explain
that
that.
there is a
Yeah.
better person for the job, but I do because I love that I do. Like, I want to know if you're a person and you do something and you are like so good at it, please be putting it out there in the world because I want to see it. Other people want to see it. And then I can
We
treat you
need
that way
everyone
because
to refer to.
we need
Yeah.
everybody here. We do need everybody here because I don't take everything and I don't
You shouldn't
want to take everything and nobody should.
No.
Like if you're taking every single thing that walks in the door, no questions asked, I would
You're
just
leaving this
urge
industry
urge
very
you
early.
to think about that.
Yeah.
You probably are going to burn out because you're like I said, I like it. Like this work satisfies me on such a deep level that I do not dread it. Like the only times that I don't want to do my job, Mandy, is when I am so depressed that I just don't want to do anything. Like those are the
Same.
times that I don't want to do my job. Otherwise, I do want to do my job and I want to do it well. And I'm passionate about showing up and doing it well. And I hope that for everyone, because it's just an easier place to occupy in the world, is a place where you are passionate and fired up about the work that you're doing.
And that does
Um,
come with time too. I think in
yeah.
learning what we do like more. For me, I think in the beginning I took everything and then I quickly learned I did not like working with puppies and I preferred
Hmm.
reactivity training. And so it takes time to learn that. You feel it out, you take what you take, and then you're like, ooh, I'm at a place now where I can start filing that out. I know this trainer, they're a good trainer. I'm gonna refer that
Yeah,
out.
it does take time.
Yeah.
And let it take time. That's fine. Like let it network and let it grow and let it build and also let it change because you might find a place that like I used to teach an online class that I don't teach anymore that I don't want to teach anymore. Like people are wondering when I'm going to put it on my own platform because I left FDSA and it's a class I used to teach at FDSA and they want to know when I'm going to put it out and then I'm not. It's not
And
coming
that's
out.
okay. That's fair
And
because
I
if it's not
love all of
something
you
that like
people, and
feeds your
I'm
soul.
so happy that it helped you if it did, but like it just ain't me, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm not. And I would love for everybody to just be like, this is the thing I like, and this is what I'm going to be doing.
Do you have any advice for anyone finding that out and figuring that out or how to start strategizing that possibly? Maybe someone that's just gotten started or is in a
Yeah.
program.
If you are just getting started, I mean, take like a really real self-reflective like moment and kind of go, well, if you haven't even had any clients yet, think, why did I want to get into dog training? Like what did I see myself doing? What was the vision? And then you may as well just try that. You may as well start there.
Right.
For me though, like most people get into dog training because they like training dogs as a hobby at some point, like, or they have a really, most of us had like a really challenging dog and then we learned a lot about dog training and then we became dog trainers. That's like a large percentage
It
of
is.
us. So maybe you look at that and you go, like, I got started, I had a border collie that was really severely aggressive towards other dogs and the way that that was handled with me being a teenager, handling him was I had a lot of people who really cared about me, who really tried to help me, who didn't know how to help dog with aggression. And when I broke into the field, I wanted to help people that were like me that had a dog that was problematic. And I wanted to make sure that they got like good advice, the advice that wouldn't make things worse, etc. So like I did take like a lot of dog directed aggression cases in the beginning because it's what I knew a lot about because of my own personal situation. Grew into I found out that intra-household aggression is really interesting to me and something that I do a really good job with, even though it is a really high stakes, scary, heartbreaking thing a lot of the time, and has just kind of like snowballed. And I did take a lot of dogs who are agility dogs who had struggles that made agility hard for them and continue to do that. Less so problems that are happening actually inside the ring. It's mostly other problems that are kind of affecting performance, like stranger directed aggression, dog directed aggression,
Right.
things like that. So the dog is really having a hard time in that environment. So it just kind of like it just snowballed. So I would encourage everybody to get involved on a hobby level, like take your dog to nose work classes, see if you like that kind of thing. Like there's a good argument against making it your hobby too, but as I already said, I've decided that argument doesn't exist for me. So I do encourage people to go train their dogs as a hobby as well. I do, if nothing else, it improves your chops. It makes you better because you're actually
Right.
training all the time and not just instructing and not just kind of talking at people. You could even just go, what kind of dogs do I like? And then what are the problems that they have?
Right.
Right?
Or
Like
oh no, go.
if you really like, I don't know, if you really love like toy breeds, cavaliers, stuff like that, like if those are your jam, like you probably should learn a little bit of separation anxiety because a lot of them have it. Like that's probably where you're going. Or you're doing, walks for these dogs because they don't want to be home by themselves all day long. Or like, whatever,
Right.
like ask yourself what dogs you like. I like dogs that are a little bit too much. Like I like dogs that are pretty intense. Like I
Yep.
like them like that. Probably I see myself in them because I'm a little bit too much. And so I kind of go that direction. These are the problems they have. They have a
Right.
lot of aggression, a lot of reactivity. Like they have a lot of generalized anxiety. That's just who they are as people. So I like them. I work with them. If you like, maybe you want to help people do self-trained service dogs because you like sweet laid back retrievers and poodles. Like maybe that's what you like. So go that direction. Like I think that's a smart question to ask because like what
Right.
are my favorite kinds of dogs? And then what do they need help with?
Yes. Ooh, yeah. Well, and something I was going to add on top of that is like most of us follow other trainers. So we're going to be seeing other trainers training. Do you like how they're training? Do you see yourself
Yeah.
doing that type of training? Ooh, does that really fire you up and you get excited when you get to see those interactions? Okay, maybe you like reactivity training.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
finding what we're good at and leaning into it. And yeah, I think
It's
that's a great
following
way.
that kind of that feeling of like I'm watching this and it's lighting something up in me. And so I'm gonna just go that direction and I'm
A
gonna
good way
see
of
how that
lighting up,
works.
not a angry.
Yeah, good way. Not
It's a
a
good yeah,
not a bad
fuel
way.
you.
Not a bad a good
Fuel,
way.
not
Yeah.
drain.
Feel yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, this conversation has been so incredible, Sarah. Thank you so much. Any last bit of advice you have to share with anyone wherever they are in their walk of life of their business right now?
I think I'm gonna repeat the like
Do it.
own who you actually are. Like put it out there. Be you. Be prepared that people won't like that.
But those aren't the people for you then.
But those aren't the people for you. So you're weeding them out. And also just if it makes you feel yucky, it's not for you. Just it's not supposed to make you feel that way. It's not for you. That comment's not for you to read. That person's not for you to follow. That client's not for you. Maybe pull out of that driveway and just keep driving if you have the experience that I had today. I definitely would have
Like, oh, I think this is the
just
wrong
kind of
address.
yeah. Yeah, just kind of pass them on to somebody else. But thank you so much, Mandy. This was a really fun conversation for me to have. It went all kinds of different places, so that's always good.
Right, true ADHD fashion. I try to guide us on a
I love
path, and
it.
it
You
zigzags
did
a little
great.
bit. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I definitely intend to have you on for another episode.
Sounds good. I'm here for it.
And if you like what we're doing here on the Leashed Mind podcast and you want to help others find us, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's leaving a review on Apple or giving us a star rating on Spotify, or just leaving a little R plus on our Facebook page. It's all appreciated. Thank you, and we will be back with another episode.